Boat Race of the North. Live from the banks of the Tyne. Brought to you by NSR, TCTV and The Courier. Newcastle University versus Durham University. I love boats, me. Great way of going about on water.
Newcastle to the rest of the world, good evening, and you're joining me, Chris Young, here on the River Tyne. Today we had an exciting day of rowing, would you believe it, as Newcastle University took on Durham University in a tense set of races. And currently, as the sun sets officially down on Newcastle, we're here for a great bit of analysis and a great bit of highlights as well. And what better way to spend your time than with our three pundits, Josh Douglason, Freddie Caldwell, and Jamil. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing your surname. I'm so sorry, lad.
Jamil Alajuice.
Oh, very correspondent. Thank you so much for that.
Like a pro.
So, I'm so sorry. Like I said, I just couldn't mispronounce your name. So, how do you find the rowing today, guys?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad it's back in Newcastle. I think it was time for it, given the Bucks' performances of both teams last week, and both as such heavy hitters, and the crowd that turned out was unprecedented, and we didn't expect it. And
Today we've seen the power of university sporting events.
Yeah.
It's magnificent. University sport can be a really high level, and rowing is evidently one of those sports where that is the case. It's nearly at a professional level, as we've seen today, and it's great to have events like this that bring that high level of sport to the people and to the students. But as I say, not just to the students who we've seen today, but also to the people of the city of Newcastle and lots of other cities who are here on Hen-Dos. So it's been a great event. Yeah.
Actually, we've kind of noticed that. Actually, as the race was going on, there seems to be a lot of people on their Hen-Dos, a lot of people who weren't expecting to see the rowing, but kind of just got themselves dragged in, didn't they, Josh?
It was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I was stood over by a picture and piano and by some of the bars, and they just started filtering out.
Okay.
They just had just seen a crowd build and just thought.
Yeah, it's amazing how cool, isn't it? Yeah.
It's that the weather was good. It brightened up straight away, and I think that probably led to it as well. A few bevs in the quayside, didn't it? So people obviously enjoyed it.
Everyone seems to get really involved, didn't they? Freddie, looked as though you were going to say something, sorry.
Well, I think, most people really did get involved. I did, two Geordie women did walk past me and say, what on earth are they rowing for?
That's a great accent, I have to say.
necessarily understood quite what was going on, or really the purpose of rowing, but I think most of us, actually got, had a really good time, so that's why they were rowing, in answer to the question.
I do feel that it is a very good spectator sport as well. It's a really exciting sport to watch, and it's not something you see every day. And as team sports go, it is one of the hardest and toughest out there, and it's easy to see that it is very difficult from the riverbanks. And
you kind of do have to say, especially on someone like the River Tyne, it just seems to be such a spectacular venue to hold the rowing, and it must be a bit more special to the rowers of both universities, isn't it?
oh, definitely. I mean, you can imagine. Of course, you have the crowd lining over the Millennium Bridge, all cheering. You can imagine the atmosphere that the rowers themselves must feel as they're rowing underneath that, being cheered on by their teammates and by the crowd. It really must be something for them.
However, though, this was actually the first rowing race between the two universities we've had for quite a few years. Josh, can you tell us a bit about the history of the actual Newcastle rowing race?
So it started in 1997, and as we all know, the Oxford-Cambridge boat race is massive, and I think these two outside of it, as I'm sure Freddie and Jamila say as we go along, these two are two of the other big hitters. Yeah. And until 2008, Newcastle hadn't won, and then 3 years on the bounce until 2011, they retained the cup. Yeah. They won it back, and with the 4-year hiatus, I think coming into today, there was a big anticipation to see whether we could hold on to it, especially after Stan Calvert as well.
Yeah. And then what did happen in Stan Calvert, Freddie?
Well, as I'm sure lots of our viewers have joined us for Stan Calvert broadcast before. But for anyone who's not used to northeastern sport, then Stan Calvert is the it is the pinnacle, because it's the varsity match between Northumbria and Newcastle. Unfortunately, in rowing terms, Northumbria really don't put the same sort of resources, and they're not really blessed with the same talent that Newcastle have had over the last few years. I don't think I'm being harsh in saying that. That sometimes one just has to state facts, and I'm of course unbiased. So, but that did lead to problems in the Stan Calvert competition. We started to lose races. I think we at one time had 8 races, then it got reduced to 4, and now it's been removed from the competition completely, which was really, really sad, because along with sports like rugby, I think many people regard rowing as one of the pinnacles of university sport, and that's because, as I mentioned earlier, it's done to such a high level. It really is nearly a professional level, and you see that in the Oxford-Cambridge boat race with Olympic medalists are rowing in the Oxford and Cambridge boat race, and actually, as we'll find out a bit later, some of the rowers in these races are also pretty much Olympic standard rowers. But so to lose that from Stan Calvert was a massive blow, but this is a fantastic replacement. It's against another university that is a really, really strong rowing university, and as Nico alluded to there, these are two of outside Oxbridge, the biggest universities in the sport, and to have a proper race in what is fantastic is a backdrop. It really is. Location-wise, I can't think of a better place to go rowing, certainly in Britain. This really should become a fantastic event that should continue for many years, I think.
I was actually going to just ask you, Jamil. So everyone does kind of talk about Oxford and Cambridge, but it's kind of easy to forget actually how good Newcastle is at rowing, but also at the same time how good Durham is as well, aren't they, on the international level?
Both teams are fantastic when it comes to rowing. Newcastle's main competition when it comes down to racing is Durham or Oxford Brookes. Oxford Brookes, outside of these two northern universities, have a very strong team to put out. But Durham and Newcastle, very fierce rivals in the rowing arena. But you can see how much it means to them that the race is finally back on, because of course the last race was in 2011. Is that right, Josh?
A tie again, and I think Newcastle retained it then as well, so again it was massive competition, as I'm sure we'll see in a bit.
Yeah, and so of course you got that massive gap in between, so you can only imagine that some of these new rowers, of course these novices, are hopefully rowing in the first of what will be a long series of Newcastle. But, unless they go to Oxford or Cambridge, of course, yeah.
And also, George, so can you tell us a bit about how the actual races ran today? So we had 4 races, and if you could just tell us what actually happened.
So we had the first 2 novice races, so that's the freshers, as Jamil's just alluded to, and Newcastle unfortunately lost both of those. The first was the women's, I think, and I think they went down in quite a hefty defeat. But they looked technically strong, Newcastle's, compared to Durham's, who were quite powerful, whereas the men was much closer. Durham led, and then coming up towards the Manelian Bridge, Newcastle brought it back a bit, and it ended quite tight. So
we should just clarify that we are going to see clarify that we are going to see some highlights in a minute. So I don't think we should talk through too yet, but suffice to say that all races today have been terrifically exciting and close. I think it's fair to say. Although it is a 1,500 metre course, this down the Tyne, so you wouldn't expect to see too much of a gap between the boats at this level. But I think when we come on to see the highlights, we will see how close and what a high level the racing was.
Well, as Freddie was just saying there, we will have highlights for you, and also we'll be providing our expert analysis as well. And also, can we just also say, for those of you who had tuned in at 9 o'clock to watch the highlights package, we are sorry, but we did have a few technical difficulties here in our makeshift studio on the River Tyne, so we do apologise for our around about 35-minute delay. So, Jamil, how did you find about the actual standard of racing there, without saying too much about who won and who lost?
The standard itself was very high. Even from the novices, who of course are mere beginners. They've only been rowing since September.
So on the screen now you should be able to see highlights of what I believe is the women's junior match, is it not?
Yes, so in the novice women's boat we have at Cox we have Charlotte Hill and stroke Kitty Grayford. 7, Kate Riley. 6, 5, Helen Brackenbury. 4, Rosie Roach. 3, Libby Ward. 2, Kiri Wood, and at bow, Katie Tomlinson. And you can see them rowing. It is to a very high standard that they are rowing. Of course, you can see them slightly down on Durham there. But you can see technically they have come on very well. And given that they have only been rowing for 7 months now, it is very impressive that they're able to go at this high rate and to challenge as they do.
Well, this is what I thought, as I rowed a little bit myself, and the technicality of the Newcastle girls, see, as I was alluding to before, it was very, very high. The Durham boat, we noticed, the people I was standing with, the mates I was standing with, noticed there was much more power in the Durham strokes. They might necessarily have not been as clean as Newcastle, but I feel like the Newcastle team have a lot of hope going forward.
And here you can see Durham boat bridge quite somewhere, at least a length ahead of the NUPC novice women.
And the Millennium Bridge being the actual finish line for the race, wasn't it?
Just after, I think.
Okay.
So you can see that Durham went on to quite clear victory there, but it was a very hard-fought race.
And so actually we were just going to say, Freddie, so the weather did seem to hold up. How important do you think the weather played in today's actual rowing?
Well, I'm not sure if it would necessarily have affected the overall results, but it was wonderful to have really, really nice conditions for rowing. I mean, maybe a slight headwind for the rowers to go into, but the river was very calm, and it looked to me to be very good conditions for rowing, and not only that, but very good conditions for spectating. And it's worth, I think, mentioning a bit about the course that we saw the rowers on there. Most of this quayside area of Newcastle is great for watching, certainly on the Newcastle side as opposed to the Gateshead side where we are now. There's really pretty much the whole stretch of river people were standing and able to watch the races, and so we've got a course where you start at the Red Hugh Bridge, and then about halfway down you've got the Tyne Bridge, and then finishing, as you say, just beyond the Millennium Bridge that you can see behind us. And I thought that was it's just a fantastic stretch of river to race on. It's broken up nicely by those bridges, so you can you get a feel for where you are on the course, and as I say, fantastic for the spectators, and great that we had the weather today.
Brilliant. Actually, we're now just about to show you some highlights regarding the men's junior race as well, and so that should just be coming up on your screen anytime now. But sadly, as you were saying, Josh, it wasn't a successful outcome for Newcastle.
Again, it was promising, as Jamil will tell you now, but they were coming in. Durham were miles ahead, and they brought it back. So there's forward there, and I know one of the rowers, Alex Spencer, and he was saying afterwards how gutted he was. So I think that just shows how much this race means to even the freshers.
So of course you can see on your screens now the novice men's race. We have the lineup for the novice men from NUBC. At Cox you have Tom Hosfield, stroke Sam Tofts, 7 Peter Welch, 6 Belly, 5 Alex Spencer, 4 Joe Parry, 3 Justin Jolly, 2 Morgan Rose, and bow Will Gray. And you can see them, of course, I believe at this point Durham are slightly up on NUBC.
This is where they started bringing it back a bit, NUBC, and they must have just tired or just not got the endurance there.
You can see how close it is. And of course,
here we go.
As soon as you're in front in rowing, as soon as you're ahead and you can see the other boat behind you, mentally you have the upper hand. As soon as you're out of sight of the other boats, you can start pushing, and they don't know where you are. Of course, their cocks can tell them, but it is a mental game.
Actually, that was something I was going to ask you, Freddie. Regarding the mentality, would you say that rowing potentially carries more of a mental game than there's a physical game as compared to other sports?
Well, there's always a balance between the mental game and physicality in sport. Rowing is evidently a very, very physical sport. You need to look at the ladies and gents stepping out of the boats at the end of the races there to see what a physical sport it is, and also what everyone gave to to these races, even over in comparison to say an Oxbridge boat race, a relatively short course. It is still a brutal event, and but as obviously Jamil says, it's so crucial to get out there in front nice and early on, and particularly with the structure of this course, where actually there's a slight bend in the first half of the course, so that's between the Red Hugh and Tyne Bridges, and most of our footage actually comes from this last stretch between the Tyne Bridge and the Millennium Bridge, which is, you've basically got straight run to the finish. Now that is compensated for. I believe they did a coin toss to decide on the lane, so you'll see in the highlights that it's not always Newcastle on the same side, and sometimes Durham on the near side or the far side. But that does obviously make a difference. So one boat was starting ahead to compensate for that. So it's interesting. I think there's two different results in the races we've already seen. I think that the two different lanes have won. So they obviously got it right as to the way of fairly doing that. But from the mental side of things, I don't know. Perhaps Jamil, you could answer this as to whether you would rather have that slightly longer course, but be starting. Be starting on the right side of the bend. Which is better in your book?
I believe it would be to start with the bend in your favour, because, of course, at the very beginning you're going your slowest as you'll be going the entire race. So any small advantage you can get in the first 500 metres, that'll count for a lot when it comes to the last 500 metres. As you're saying about rowing being a mental game or a physical game, I would say that it is very much a game of both, as are most. But it's mentally tough and it's physically tough, but as well, unlike other team sports where, let's say, rugby or football, if you're tired, you can stop for a little bit, you can walk, you can go for a jog, and your friends will cover you on the pitch. Rowing, if you stop, you've lost your team the race. If you make a mistake, you've lost your team the race. When your legs are on fire and it hurts to breathe, you've got to keep going, because you take one wrong step, and as I said, you lose your team the race.
One of the more lasting images of the race was, we'll come on to the seniors in just a bit, but I remember the Durham women's, there was a lady at the back, and she looked so abject. It looked as though she was about to throw up, like she just couldn't keep her body straight or anything. I was just wondering as well, I'm sorry, you were going to say something, Josh.
In terms of that as well, is that, as Jamil will, I'm sure, go on to say, is that as you're coming to that finish, if you win, I'm sure it doesn't hurt as much as it does if you lose. I'm sure that was double the pain. She was rowing back past us, I was stood with you, and she just looked absolutely distraught. And I walked down and saw her on the jet, and she was just keeled over. And it's a heartbreaking sport. She looked in
absolute physical pain, didn't she?
It just looks like agony.
Yeah.
I don't know who would want to put themselves through it, frankly.
It really is brutal, but again, the reason that these teams train so hard for such a short race is because it is as brutal as it is. That's
actually what I was going to ask you, Jamil. So what is the life like as a rower? So what are you expected to eat certain things? Are you expected to go to the gym certain times? What exactly is the lifestyle of a university rower?
So of course, training will vary from university to university.
Yeah.
Newcastle is known...
I'm out there, didn't I? Yeah.
You train hard and you row hard.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay, sure thing. So we are very apologetic about that, but as you can imagine, we are very much a student-run radio station, and given our budget, we've tried the best we can. It's amazing to think actually how well we've done, considering we've had a gazebo, we've got set up equipment on the River Tyne. I think we've done a good effort, but like I said, we have been cutting in and out, so we do very much apologise, and hopefully this will last a bit longer. Fingers crossed though. Anyway, we were before that though, we're talking about the training, so Jamil, can you go over that again?
Of course. So as I was saying before our brief advertising interlude, each university's training will vary.
Yes,
but
of course.
Newcastle and Durham are known for having very grueling training regimes.
Yeah.
Of course, ours stems from having Angelo Savarino as our head coach. He joined the club in 2005 and has been with us ever since. It's been nothing but a great positive influence on us. And Angelo was the former Italian women's national coach. So if you can imagine, you have an Olympic level coach coaching a university team. He trains you like you're an Olympian. I used to row, I've since quit, so I've tasted a bit of the training. Found it was a little bit too much for me. But these lads will be up training 5:30 in the morning, getting it all done just before their lectures. And as soon as they're out of lectures, 6 o'clock in the evening, you've got more training. It's either going to be a split of weights, work on the rowing machine, or sessions on the water themselves. training in Newcastle as well is a great benefit because the Tyne is known for being quite choppy. And when you can row on a choppy river well, you can row on a flat river even better.
Exactly, that's true. We're just about to show you some highlights regarding the senior races. So we're going to come up with the women's first. That will come up for you in just a second's time. We've got up now. So Josh, can you talk us a little bit about what's happened in this race?
This race was fantastic for Newcastle. Jamil, have you got the teams there?
We have the team lineup for the Newcastle senior women. So at Cox you have Sasha Adwani, stroke Natalie Hardy, 7 Rosie Rust, 6 Emily Ford, 5 Imogen Lee, 4 Grace Hockenhill, 3 Martha Dixon, 2 Sarah Fabes, and bow Rachel Webb.
Now, what I saw in this race was just sheer power and determination from Newcastle, and I think it just showed, as you can see here. They're just moving away with ease, and they're moving so smoothly as a team.
It really was dominance, wasn't it? It really was dominance over Durham here. Here you can see them leading by about 2 boat lengths. It really was.
As you
extraordinary, actually, the effort put in by Newcastle in particular, but it's extraordinary just how big the gap is compared to what we saw in the junior one, wasn't it, Josh?
It's as Jamil said earlier, to get that much distance over such a short distance is just it's astonishing.
Well, of course,
really.
Newcastle University are racing with a very strong team. Just last weekend at Bucks, the senior women's Champ 8 took silver at Bucks, and that was only behind Cambridge's, who got gold. So if you can imagine, Cambridge, this is the same Cambridge women's boat that raced in the Oxford Cambridge boat race.
Yeah.
So it is a very strong team that they fielded.
And there is our opponents there. That was me, and there was Josh on the side. Just ecstatic. But it's an incredible performance.
I think it's as much as taking in, if you take in the surroundings as well there. I think if you look at what you're rowing, you can't see that, but the Coxes must feel coming towards that, knowing the crowd roaring them on. It's just fantastic.
It really must be.
It's fantastic for the city as well. I think this is a football and cricket and slightly rugby dominated city, and I think in terms of getting the boats out there and showing people what rowing's about, I think this has done a lot for the character of rowing today.
And I think seeing Newcastle win will hopefully let the event grow in Newcastle. Of course, if Durham won, it maybe would have left with a little bit more bitterness. But seeing the senior women win is just going to be such a great feeling in a team.
Especially, as you were saying now. So we've just basically just got here one more shot before we come back to us. Just basically the finishing line. You can see the Newcastle women crossing the line, and it must be such an incredible feeling, won't it be, Freddie?
Absolutely, and it's obviously hard to get a picture from that footage of the noise on the riverbank this evening. Exactly. But this Millennium Bridge, as I say, you can see it behind us. Some gunshots over there on the other side of the river. So for once, I'm glad that we're in Gateshead. But coming back to the rowing, the finish line's just beyond the Millennium Bridge. So I've never seen anything like it, really. Both levels of the bridge just packed with people, and the noise was fantastic, mostly in favour of Newcastle, which is obviously wonderful. Yeah. But I think a fair few amount of Durham fans there as well. So I spoke earlier about what a great arena it is for watching the sport, and I think just in terms of the noise that was produced, I'm sure that even though the river is a little bit below the level of the bridge, well, thankfully quite a way below, for the sake of the rowers. But I'm sure the noise would still have come down to the rowers in the boats, and no doubt spurred them on.
I have to admit, so when I first came, I saw quite a few people standing on the gates of Millennium Bridge, just kind of looking down as the boats went underneath, and that must be such an amazing feeling as a rower, wouldn't it?
Being cheered on from above as you pass up. Yes, definitely, most definitely. I mean, you had crowds right along the bank for the last 700-800 metres of the race, and although it may not be as noisy as it was at Eton Dorney, but it's noise enough for a university team to appreciate. And hearing calls of "Come on NUBC, come on DUBC," it is a great feeling to hear that. I'm sure.
There's also a lot of Durham people coming from, all the way from Durham. From miles away. Yeah, I know, miles away. But actually, speaking of the build-up to the race, Josh, how much advertising, how much coverage was there leading up to the actual boat race itself?
That's quite a difficult one. From a paper perspective, we did a lot of chatting to people who've rowed in it, people who've spoken about it before, a lot of illustrations, a lot of highlighting where and when to come and watch it. But I think the local press have also been involved in getting it involved as well. And I think there's a rumour that ITV Time Tees are going to pick it up tomorrow. So as I said, like.
We all are friends over at ITV.
Oh, lovely friends.
Yeah.
I love them.
We do get on, but no, I think it's nice to hear. You know, there has been some publicity. I think earlier on I spoke, about rowing in Stan Calvert, but this can really be compared to the rugby Clash of the Titans games. So that's the rugby matches that happen between Newcastle and Northumbria, two top-level university rugby teams down at Kingston Park, again another premier sports venue, and the level of advertising for that is really pretty good. We get thousands of people down to those games, and
University as well.
Yeah, exactly. So this, I would hope, could reach that similar level and really draw those crowds. As I say, I think it's fantastic for university sports to have these events, and they really should continue.
And I think, as you alluded to there, Freddie, in terms of the Unity Sports and the rugby, it's good to have another massive event. I think the university have really gone to get behind it now. I think in terms of us doing this and the boat race being such a success, I think it will come back, and it will come back with a vengeance.
Absolutely. I mean, without wanting to praise ourselves again, hopefully people are watching this at home. People are seeing the highlights, and it'll encourage people to get down next year. And my message certainly to the universities would be, this is a wonderful thing, but not just to the universities, but to the city as well. There's a few events that go down on the Tyne. We have some power boating every now and then, some boat shows. So in terms of the adrenaline, this is absolutely similar. So it's great. And I think we sort of mentioned it before, but there really were, it wasn't just university students down here today. Newcastle Quayside is always busy on a Saturday, but there's a lot of people, as I say, from around the country really, thanks to the hen parties and things. But a lot of people coming up and asking what's going on, and really getting involved. And so hopefully they'll go back to wherever they are on the peaceful weekdays and go back with the love of rowing.
I was walking back to Baltic HQ here, and there was even one woman with two prams genuinely upset that the 4 races had ended. They wanted more of it, which is, I think, is just fantastic.
When
and
you're trying to keep babies entertained, literally anything will do.
Leave them there. She can not bother
Yeah.
She can have a pint.
Hopefully, though, we will be able to see the boat race come back to the River Tyne, especially given the success that Newcastle had with the men. So what exactly happened, Jamil?
So the men's race, of course, as you'll probably see on your screen now, was a very hard-fought race. Representing NUBC, you have at Cox, Callum McRoberts, stroke Ollie Knight, 7 James Rudkin, 6 Tom Ford, 5 Tim Clark, 4 James Robson, 3 Sam Wilson, 2 George Patrick, and about Thomas James. As you can see,
it's just sheer
How
power.
hard they are.
well, you can see how fluid they are as a team. It
They
is
starting to glide through the Tyne, don't they?
such a well-rowed race, and you can look at the distance between NUBC and Durham. It's at least 2-3 lengths
complete,
there.
Yeah, it's
complete dominance.
Which isn't surprising. I don't know much about the DUBC squad, but I know for a fact that the NUBC squad that they're fielding today has 4 rowers at least that have represented Great Britain.
And I think
The standard is unbelievably high, isn't it? Sorry, I was going to say, Josh.
as we keep saying, it's fantastic for the university to have these GB athletes in the squad. And earlier this week we had something come through the paper, and it was a quote from Angelo Savino. And
Angelo Savarino.
Yeah, Savarino. And he said, and he was saying, "Oh, how did we get on?" This is about books last weekend, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, we did really well. The race went really well." And he went, "Oh, so how did we do?" He went, "Oh, we won 4 goals in the 4s." And he went, "That is good," and walked off. So I think that shows the attitude.
He can be a man of few words, but he is a very fantastic coach. I mean,
That's brilliant.
I have some of our results from Bucks here, from the senior men. Silver in the Champ 8, so silver with that same crew that he fielded today. Only Oxford Brooks took gold, as I said, Oxford Brooks being a very big rival.
Yeah.
Bronze in the intermediate 8s. Took gold in the Champ Coxless 4. Gold in the Champ Quad. It goes to show we are a very strong competitor when it comes to Bucks. Very strong.
And also, that's something that we've not even talked about, actually. We've just been talking about the 8s, and here are the Sorry, just a bit of a technical difficulty. That's something we haven't even talked about yet. We've just been seeing the 8s today, or the 9s. We've not even talked about the 4s, the 2s, or anything like that. But the standard does seem to be very high across the board, doesn't it, Jamil?
It really is.
Yeah.
As I said, when you train as hard and as much as NUBC train,
Yeah.
then you are going to breed good. You're going to breed quality rowers out of it. And it's no surprise that you have as many as they do representing GB, and that was just in that boat.
No, just in that
You've-
one boat, yeah.
You've had rowers which have left last year who
Yeah.
have also represented GP. Some have gone on to row at clubs in Henley, to row at forget the name. But speaking of Henley,
Yeah.
also 2 rowers and the Cox from that boat
Yeah.
were in the Cox 4 that competed at Henley last year.
Yeah.
Of course, they competed in the Prince Albert Challenge Cup,
Of which we did very well, and didn't
of
we?
which we won.
Yeah. Oh, we won. Okay, so very well.
Of which we won in the
Yeah.
final to against Harvard. Of course, American universities take their rowing very serious, and
That's quite phenomenal to think we actually did beat Harvard, which is so well known for its rowing as well.
and we
It's
did
quite
beat them
spectacular.
by 3.5.
Quite
So,
spectacular.
and that was Tom Ford, James Rudkin,
Yeah.
and Callum McRoberts from the boat there who were in that. So you have a very experienced group of guys in this boat.
And it's quite amazing to think, actually. So hopefully we've got a few pictures of the guys celebrating, and it just looks to be it's just such a relief more than anything, isn't it, Freddie?
Those are wonderful scenes, and
Yeah.
anyone who's played sport knows knows the feeling that you go through when you've gone pretty much into that that lactic acid zone, and then the joy of winning just massively helps to
You just
overcome
can't,
it.
like, go for the pain barrier, don't you,
Contrasting
really?
that, the poor Durham team,
Yeah.
when you then go to the despair of losing, your muscles just don't seem to recover, and
that's
you can
true.
barely move. So you could see that the Newcastle guys are in high spirits there,
That's
but
amazing.
which was great to see.
And actually, I was going to kind of lead on to this. Josh, do you think it's a bit of a surprise then that Newcastle University doesn't actually advertise itself more as a rowing university as opposed to anything else?
I think they do. They work very hard, and they get some very, as you can see with the quality of the rowing,
Yeah.
that they do get the quality rowers through. And I
Yeah.
think they're one of the only universities. Speaking before, and they're one of the only universities that don't bring people in on scholarships. We bring people in on academia as well as their rowing, and I think that's fantastic that we can get that level of person through.
Yeah.
And that sort of ambassador for the and I think they do market it well, and I don't think there's much more they can do. It's just hard for the university to follow, because they do row quite long distances away, and they
incredible,
are
isn't it?
liable to long weekends.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult to cover.
From the point of view of today's racing, you can see the quality that's in the Newcastle boat, and that comes from people deciding to come to Newcastle University who are
In the
good
first
rowers.
place,
They obviously know this is a great place to be for rowing. And something else that I sort of like to mention is that actually all the races today, we got through them in about an hour, and so everyone kind of wanted
unbelievably
more.
quick, wasn't
So I would say to the organisers of this event, we could do more. We were talking
do
about the
this
strength
literally
across the board
easy single- every single year,
in Newcastle rowing. I have to say that there's nothing quite like watching an 8 row. It might be nice to have, say, a 4 as well, or even invite some other universities, even from across the pond, so to speak. We're talking about Harvard.
Or go from America, that'd be quite
I'm sure they'd
That'd be
like to
perfect
come
trade
over and
it's
try
quite a
the time.
spectacular view, isn't it?
Yeah,
Going down the Tyne. So we're about to wrap things up. So we'll start with you, Josh. Any final thoughts from today?
Well, that's quite a difficult one, because there is so many thoughts. I think, as Freddie just said,
If I'd have pushed you for about 30 seconds or so.
I think in terms, my message to the organisers as well would be just take it forward, take it on, keep it going. I think to have it back is just fantastic, and we've seen the support shown, and it speaks for itself.
Yeah. Actually, can I quickly just say, it must have been so hard to actually organise this, to get council permission, to get Durham to come in the first place. I can imagine a lot of negotiating taking place, and also for the logistics side as well, actually having on the River Tyne itself. A lot of thanks must go to everyone who was involved with that. Before I cut to you, Faye, so what are your final thoughts?
Well, it's just been a great day. I've sort of spoken throughout the show about the reaction of people on the banks. My own reaction, again, was I really, really enjoyed it. And I've been to a lot of university sporting events over, during my time here, and this was certainly one of the best. And in terms of atmosphere, in terms of the quality of the sport, and in terms of the way that it engaged people on the riverbank. So, I really do hope, I've said it already in the broadcast, but I really do hope that this continues and goes from strength to strength. And I'm sure if given the proper support, it really will do.
And so, Jamil, your final thoughts as well then?
Yes, I've just been really pleased with the day as a whole. It's been a showcase for some excellent rowing from a novice standard right up to a senior and part-time Olympian standard. So I'm sure it's been a great watch for everyone who doesn't know anything about rowing, and for those who row for the clubs and just come down to watch their teammates. And I really do hope that it's carried on in the years to come. And if nothing else, just to get some more bragging rights for Newcastle University over Durham.
Anyway. So basically, we're just going to quickly cut to our production team. So if we were to cut to the back here, we've got from our back studio, there is everyone. There's Will, Tom, and everyone else. It's great to see.
It's just a quick note to make. Will did set all this up originally and is the brainchild of Stream Cerberus, and I dare say a lot of money has gone into it, but a lot of heart and soul went into it, and I think a lot of thanks goes to Will Lilly for the past year.
And everyone else involved with Team Cerberus who have worked their socks off.
That's a big thank you to Billy Rabici as well. And Tom Payne, George Haffenden, and Will Lilly.
There you go.
And
a full name.
And site secretary Alice Mason.
We've all had a great day out here on the bank. Probably also to Newcastle University for all the money as well.
That's true. That is a very good point.
I mean, we could always do with more, but
well, we'll just potentially go on anyway. But no, it's good. It's good to see. So basically, that's here on the River Tyne, and that is us from Team Cerberus. As we come to the end of the academic year, so too comes the end of Stream Cerberus. It's been an unbelievable year. We've done Stan Calvert, the elections, we've also done Clash of the Titans, and now we end here on the River Tyne, and what an exciting climax has been. So, Jamil, Freddie, Josh,
what's Jamil's surname? Can we do surnames as well?
It's so can't pronounce it. I'm so sorry, you can't pronounce it generally.
Never mind.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. But that's it from all of us here, from Stream Cerberus to the rest of the world. I'm Chris Young, and I wish you all a great night, and take care.
Boat Race of the North, live from the banks of the Tyne, brought to you by NSR, TCTV and the Courier. Newcastle University versus Durham University. I love boats, me. Great way of getting about on water.